I refused to pay $48,000 to save my half-sister's wedding, and by breakfast my whole family had made me the villain. My coffee sat cold on the kitchen table, a dull skin forming on top, while my phone buzzed so hard it inched toward the edge. Aunt Denise, you're heartless. Then, my stepmother. Then cousins who only remembered my number when someone needed a check. Nobody asked what Beth had told me. They just imagined me sitting there with money to spare, smiling while her dream day collapsed. I wiped spilled coffee off my sock with a dish towel and stared at the screen. Breathing through my nose like that could keep me calm. If it had really been just a wedding, I probably would have paid and stayed quiet. But somebody was lying. My life has never looked like what people picture when they say, he can afford it. I live in a one-story house near the edge of town, with gutters I keep meaning to replace in the garage, so full of speaker stands, road cases, old amps, and coiled black cable that I have to turn sideways to reach the washing machine. Most mornings, I eat toast over the sink and write my expenses in a spiral notebook with a pencil. Pencil feels honest. Numbers change. Ink acts like they don't. I design sound systems for small theaters, church auditoriums, school places where the budget is thin but somebody still wants grandma in the back row to hear every line. Some weeks I'm under a stage with a flashlight in my mouth. Other weeks I'm at my kitchen table after midnight, tracing signal paths while the electric bill sits under a trout-shaped magnet. I'm not poor, and I won't pretend I am. Years ago, I sold a small share in an audio software company when it got bought by a bigger outfit with glass walls and people who said synergy too much. My cut wasn't mention money. It was breathe easier money. Pay off the house money. Keep the truck running money. To my family, it became something else. After Dad died, the requests came with soft voices and hard deadlines. Aunt Marlene's transmission, my nephew's welding certification, Carla's dental work after she cracked a molar and tried to chew on one side through Thanksgiving dinner. I helped when it made sense. I paid mechanics, schools, and clinics directly. I didn't announce it. Dad always said loud generosity was just vanity wearing a halo. Carla was my stepmother, though the word never sat right. Dad married her when I was 26, old enough to have my own apartment and my own bruised feelings. Beth came later, red-faced and furious, when Dad was already gray at the temples. Technically, she was my half-sister. In my memory, she was the little girl asleep during football games, one hand sticky with grape jelly. For years, I didn't know my place in that family. Too old to be a regular brother, too young to feel like an uncle. Dad would clap my shoulder and say, "Just show up, Nate, that counts." So I showed up. I fixed porch railings, carried folding chairs, drove Beth to the airport at 4 in the morning, sat through graduations in gyms that smelled like floor wax and carnations. But showing up became being available. Available became expected. Expected became owed. That morning, while my phone kept lighting up, I opened the drawer beside the stove and took out my budget notebook. The pencil was worn to an up. I sharpened it over the trash can as another message arrived. You of all people should help her. I looked toward the garage, at the cables hanging like black vines, and felt that old tiredness settle into my ribs. They knew I had money. They had never bothered to know my rules. Beth called at 9:17. That night, right as the dishwasher kicked into its heavy rinse cycle, I almost let it go. My thumb hovered over the green button while a cradled behind me, like loose change in a dryer. Then I pictured her at 6 years old, standing on Dad's work boots to dance in the living room. And I answered, "Nate?" Her voice cracked on my name. "What happened?" "They're going to cancel it," she said, breathing too fast. "Cancel what?" "The wedding, the venue, everything." She started crying, but quietly, like she was in a room where crying too loudly would get her corrected. "They said there was a contract error. The package we signed was the right one, and now we owe the difference or they release the date." I leaned against the counter. The dishwasher hissed and filled again. "How much?" A pause. Paper shifted on her end. 48,000, she whispered. I closed my eyes. "Nate, I know. I know it's insane. But we only have 72 hours. If we don't pay, we lose the deposit, the catering, the hotel block, everything. Who told you this? The coordinator. What's her name? Before Beth answered, a man's voice slid onto the line. Calm, polished, ready. Hey, Nate. It's Grant. It met Grant for times. Commercial insurance guy. Loafers without socks. Always shook my hand with both of his. Like we were closing a deal I hadn't agreed to. Where's Beth? I asked. She's right here. She's upset. Obviously. His tone dropped into something solemn and rehearsed. Listen, man. I know this is sudden. But family has to stand together when things get ugly. I stared at the magnet holding my electric bill to the fridge. Ugly how? They're threatening to void the agreement. Legal stuff. Fine print. You know how these places are. Send me the contract. Already did. My phone buzzed against my ear. I opened the email. There was no PDF. Just 3 blurry screenshots taken at an angle. Half the words were cut off. No signature page. The venue name looked smeared, like a wet thumb had dragged across it. This isn't the contract, I said. It's what they sent Beth. I need the original file. Grant gave a short laugh with no humor in it. We don't exactly have time for a document review. Beth made a small sound in the background, then went quiet. Beth, I said, did you speak to the venue yourself? Silence. Then Grant said, she's been on the phone all day. She's exhausted. I asked Beth. For a moment, all I heard was the dishwasher and my own pulse. I don't know what to do, she whispered. That scared me more than the number. Not the tears. That flat little sentence, like she'd folded herself into a corner. Grant came back in. Your dad would want you to help her. There it was. Dad's ghost, placed on the table like collateral. I looked toward the dark garage, where coils of cable hung from the wall. Send me the venue manager's name and a real invoice. We need the money by Friday. Then sending it shouldn't be hard. Grant's breathing changed, just slightly. Beth miffed once, then nothing. No pleading, no explanation, just a silence so complete it made every polished piece of his story feel louder. I didn't sleep much after that call. By 6 in the morning, I was still at the kitchen table with my laptop open and a cold mug beside my elbow, refreshing my email like a real invoice might appear out of pity. It didn't. At 6:03. Grant texted. We're not giving you strangers' numbers, so you can interrogate people. Either help or don't. I stared at it, then typed slowly. Send the venue contact an invoice. If it checks out, you'll pay them directly today. The answer came as a phone call. Grant didn't bother with hello. Do you have any idea how insulting this is? I was at the sink rinsing a spoon I hadn't used. Outside, the neighbor's dog barked at the gray morning. It's not insulting, I said. It's standard. You're treating us like criminals. No. In treating $48,000 like $48,000. He gave a short laugh. Beth said you'd do this. That hit harder than I wanted it to. For a second, I saw Beth at 7, asleep on Dad's couch with one sock half off, mumbling, "Don't drop me," while I carried her to bed. Put Beth on, I said. She's crying. Then let me talk to her. She doesn't need another lecture from you. I'm offering to pay the bill. You're humiliating us 2 weeks before our wedding. If the bill is real, you'll pay it directly. Today, there was a silence long enough for the dog to bark twice more. Then Grant said, low and sharp, keep your money. The line went dead. By lunch, the family group chat had turned into a fire. Aunt Marlene wrote, I never thought you'd punish your own sister for being in love. My cousin Derek added, must be nice sitting on cash while Beth falls apart. Then Carla sent one message. Your father would be ashamed. I stared at those words until my eyes burned. Carla rarely swung straight. She usually circled before she struck. Dragging Dad into it made my chest feel scooped out. I typed 3 replies and deleted all of them. When I turned the ringer off, the phone kept vibrating across the table, bumping against my budget notebook. I moved the notebook, and an old envelope slipped from the back pocket. Dad's handwriting was on it. Neat house stuff. Inside were copies of final utility bills, repair notes, and 3 born ledger pages. His numbers were blocky pencil marks. Just like mine. Roof patch. $42. Beth shoes. 19. Carla prescription. 12. At the bottom? HE'd written help if you can. Don't let anyone spend your conscience for you. I sat down slowly while the phone kept buzzing. A new message flashed from a number I didn't know. You're really going to ruin her wedding over your ego? Then Derek again. Everybody knows you never accepted Carla and Beth anyway. I laughed once. Empty and bitter. Years of airport rides, hospital chairs, quiet checks to dentists and mechanics erased because I asked for an invoice. Against my better judgment, I opened Facebook. Carla had posted Beth's bridal shower photo. Beth smiled under a paper ribbon crown, shoulders tight. Grant's hand spread across the back of her chair. The caption read, "Some people have full bank accounts and empty hearts. Praying my daughter learns who truly stands with her." I could have commented. I could have asked why nobody would send a real bill. Why Beth wasn't answering her own phone. But public truth turns into public mud fast, and I was going to drag Beth through it to make myself look clean. That evening, I went into the garage and stood among the coiled cables on road cases. A good cable either carries the signal or it doesn't. If there's noise, you trace the line. Back at the kitchen table, I opened my notebook to a blank page. Beth Wedding Verify. Under it, I wrote, venue name, manager, original contract. My family had already convicted me. All I had left was the evidence. The next morning, I didn't call anyone in the family. My phone lay face down on the kitchen table, buzzing every few minutes like an insect trapped under a glass. I made coffee, burned my toast, scraped the black edges into the sink, and opened my laptop. The screenshots Grant had sent were still in my email. Blurry, crooked, just useless enough to make questions feel insulting. I zoomed in until the letters broke into squares. In one corner, half a logo appeared above a line of text. Willowmere Hall. It was the waterfront place Beth had once described. It was a brick events space outside Dayton. All ivy walls and string lights and smiling couples on the website. At the bottom of the page was a public phone number. I stared at it for a while. There is a point where concern becomes investigation. And once you cross it, you can't pretend you're just the calm older brother asking reasonable questions. I thought of Beth at 12, sitting on the tailgate of Dad's truck while I fixed a microphone stand for her school talent show. She'd asked if the mic would make her sound nervous. I told her microphones don't create fear. They only reveal it. Then I dialed. Willowmere Hall. This is Marcy. Hi, I said. My name is Nate Harlan. I'm calling about a wedding for Beth Harlan and Grant Rusk. Keys clicked softly. I stood with one hand flat on the counter, watching a soap bubble cling to a fork in the drying rack. Yes, Marcy said. I see them. My chest tightened. Some small part of me had hoped the whole wedding was fake. A clean lie. An easy answer. I was told there's an emergency balance due, I said. Around $48,000. Supposedly from a contract mistake. The line went quiet. I'm sorry, she said carefully. Could you repeat that amount? 48,000? More typing. A chair creaked. Sir, I can't discuss account details unless you're listed. I understand. I'm only asking whether Willowmere Hall is demanding that payment by Friday or threatening to cancel the event. Another pause. Longer this time. Let me transfer you to our events director. Hold music filled my kitchen. Thin piano notes I almost recognized. My coffee steamed beside the laptop and then stopped steaming. By the time another woman picked up, my stomach had gone hollow. This is, and, Rhea Pike. I repeated my name and explained that I would pay the venue directly if a legitimate balance existed. But I needed confirmation from the venue itself, and Rhea listened without interrupting. Mr. Harlan, she said at last, I can't release contract specifics to you. But I can tell you there is no emergency balance of that size associated with this event. I closed my eyes. No additional 48,000? No. No cancellation threat? Not from us. The refrigerator hummed. Somewhere outside, a truck backed up with 3 dull beeps. Then Ria added, "Quieter. We did receive a request last week to refund the existing deposit to a different payment method. That request was denied because it didn't match the original payer information." I opened my eyes. Was Beth part of that request? I can't discuss that. But her silence had weight. It was not empty. "Can you send Beth a copy of the original contract?" I asked. "To the email you have on file." "Not to me." "We can do that. And if anyone calls pretending to be me, don't give them anything. They'll note it." After we hung up, I stood there with the phone in my hand, feeling no satisfaction at all. Grant's story was cracking, but Beth was still inside it. My phone buzzed again. "Carla, your father would be ashamed of you." I let the screen dim. Then I opened my notebook and wrote beneath original contract. "No emergency charge. Deposit refund attempted." I underlined attempted twice. The question was no longer whether someone was lying. It was how deep the lie went. And whether my sister knew where the bottom was. By noon, Ria had sent Beth the contract, and I had done the one thing I told myself I would do. I drove to Carla's house. The pale yellow ranch sat at the end of the cul-de-sac, the same house Dad had painted one July while cursing his knees and pretending he didn't need help. Now the porch was crowded with unopened Amazon boxes and little white yard signs that said Team Beth and Bride Parking Only. Carla opened the door before I knocked. Her eyes were red. Her mouth was set like a lock. "If you came to lecture me, Nate? I can't. I came to ask if you've seen the actual contract. Grant handles that. Beth is overwhelmed. That's what worries me." Behind her, Beth sat at the dining room table with a yellow legal pad in front of her. The pen was in her hand, but the page was blank. Her hair was pulled back too tight, and there were crescent marks in her palm where her nails had dug in. She looked at me like I was a bill collector. "Why are you here?" I stepped inside. Dad's old wall clock ticked above the hallway. Too loud for that little room. I called Willowmere. Beth's face changed. Not fear. Exactly. More like somebody had turned off a light behind her eyes. Carla turned. "What does that mean?" Beth stood so fast the chair scraped the floor. "You had no right." "I had every right to verify a $48,000 emergency." Her cheeks flushed. "You always do this. You make people prove they're not lying before you decide to care. That isn't fair." "No. What isn't fair is you acting like money makes you the judge." Carla pressed a hand to her throat. "Beth? Honey, what did the venue say?" Beth didn't answer her. She only stared at me. Then she said, "I asked for the refund." Carla whispered, "You what?" "I asked them to send the deposit back." Beth's voice stayed sharp, but her eyes filled. "I needed time. Time." The word landed wrong. "For what?" I asked. She glanced toward the hallway, at the crooked line of family photos, Dad with a fish, Carla in a Christmas sweater, me standing stiffly beside Beth at her graduation while both of us pretended our family made sense. "I can't explain it to you. You can try." "No. You'll turn it into a spreadsheet and tell me what I'm allowed to feel." Carla sat down on the sofa as if her legs had quit. "Are you saying there isn't an extra fee?" Beth wiped her cheek with the heel of her hand. Her engagement ring flashed in the window light, big enough that I had noticed months ago and chosen not to ask. "There are expenses," she said. "You don't understand what things cost." "That's not an answer." She snatched a white envelope from the table and shoved it against my chest. "There. Since you need proof so badly." Inside was a credit union printout. Beth's name. A loan balance. 46,000 and change. Carla made a small wounded sound. I looked at my sister. "Is this wedding debt?" Her mouth trembled. For half a second, she looked 16 again, standing in Dad's garage after backing into my truck, waiting for me to yell. Then the front door opened. Grant walked in carrying 2 iced coffees and a dry cleaning bag. His smile vanished when he saw the paper in my hand. Well, he said softly. I guess now everybody knows. Beth closed her eyes. And for the first time all week, I wondered if I had aimed my suspicion at the wrong person. Grant set the coffees on Carla's entry table like they might explode. One tipped, spilling cold brew across a stack of mail. Nobody reached for a napkin. I held up the credit union statement. What is this? Grant looked at Beth instead of me. You told him? She didn't tell me, I said. She threw it at me because she's terrified. Beth folded her arms over her stomach. Her engagement ring flashed under the ceiling light. Too bright for that dim little room. Grant sighed. It's a temporary loan. For what? For us. Wedding costs. Apartment deposits. Grown-up life. Things cost money. Owen. Carl's face drained. Beth? Honey, why didn't you come to me? Beth laughed once. Sharp and empty. With what? Mom? Your fixed income? Your pharmacy coupons? Carla flinched. Don't, I said. Beth turned on me. Eyes red. You don't get to act steady now. You were gone. Dad died and you became a checkbook with voicemail. That hit deep enough to make me look away. On the carpet, a crushed cheese cracker sat by the couch leg, left from some cousin's kid. Something ordinary in the middle of a wreck. I was working, I said. You were hiding. Grant put a hand on her shoulder. Babe, you don't owe them an explanation. She shrugged him off. The room changed. His mouth tightened, then smoothed. A small adjustment, like a sound man killing feedback. I knew that look. Calculation pretending to be patience. I lowered the paper. Beth, did you know someone asked the venue to refund part of the deposit to a different car? Her face went blank. What? Grant said. Not relevant. It is if money was being pulled out of the wedding account. Beth stared at him. What refund? He rubbed his forehead. I was moving things around. We talked about this. No, we didn't. Yes, we did. You were upset. You forget things when you're upset. The way he said it made my skin go cold. Beth touched the thin chain at her neck. The one Dad had given her at graduation. I remembered fastening it in a church basement while Carla cried into a napkin and Dad pretended he had dust in his eyes. Carla whispered, Grant, what did you do? He laughed. Unbelievable. One piece of paper and suddenly it's a trial. One piece. I held up the statement. $46,000 in her name. She signed it. Beth looked at him, as if the floor had moved. He turned fast. Don't look at me like that. You wanted the life. You wanted that hall, that dress, everybody finally seeing you. Her face crumpled, but she didn't cry. I stepped closer. Careful. Grant's eyes snapped to mine. Or what? You'll lecture me. You don't scare me. I'm not trying to scare you. No. You're trying to control her. Beat's voice was barely there. You said your bonus was coming. It is. You said the loan was just until then. It was. You said married people help each other. Grant spread his hands. They do. Carla covered her mouth. Beside her, Dad's wedding photo sat near a ceramic angel. His sunburned face smiling like he'd been handed a second chance. I put the statement on the coffee table. Beth, I said quietly, look at me. It took her a second, but she did. I'm not giving him $48,000. I'm not handing you cash either. But I will stay here all night and help you find out exactly what's in your name. Grant scoffed. There it is. No, I said. Receipts. He reached for Beat's hand. Whirl Eving. She didn't move. Beth. Still nothing. He leaned close. After everything I did to keep you from being humiliated. She pulled her hand back like his touch burned. The refrigerator hummed in the kitchen. That was the only sound. Grant looked at us, and the charm finally fell away. What remained was smaller. Meaner. You people deserve each other, he said. He grabbed a dry cleaning bag from the chair and slammed the door hard enough to rattle the ceramic angel. Beth stood for 3 seconds. Then, her knees gave out. I caught her before she hit the carpet. She shook without crying, fingers twisted in my shirt. I don't know what I signed, she whispered. Carla knelt beside us with a broken sound. I held my sister the way I should have years ago. When Dad's garage smelled like motor oil and grief, and none of us knew how to be a family without him. Okay, I said. Though nothing was. Then we start there. We didn't go to the police that night. Beth was shaking too hard to hold a glass. And Carla kept whispering. I should have known. Like she was apologizing to the walls. So I made toast because it was the only ordinary thing left. 2 burnt slices. Butter scraped on with Carl as red-handled knife. Beth sat at the kitchen table in one of her mother's old sweatshirts, staring at the plate like eating belonged to another life. Start small, I said. One thing you remember signing. She swallowed. Grant said my credit score was holding us back. For the apartment? At first. Then, the honeymoon. Furniture. He said we had to show financial unity before the wedding. I hated that phrase on sight. Carla came in carrying Beats purse, a shoebox, and an opened envelope tied with a hair elastic. These were in your old room. Grant told me they were wedding confirmations. Beth looked at the stack like it might bite her. I sat beside her, not across from her. Can I? She nodded. The first envelope was a store card. Balance $7,800. The second was a personal loan. The third had Carl's name on it. For a second I thought the kitchen light was playing tricks. Then my stomach went cold. Carla, I said, this one is yours. Her hand flew to her throat. No, I didn't open anything. Beth leaned over, saw her mother's name, and made a small broken sound. He said it was income verification. She whispered. He said Mom needed to co-sign so the venue would hold our date. I spread the papers carefully. Though my hands wanted to shake, there were more. Electronics financing. A department store account. A bank notice about an online application missing documents. At the bottom was a folded copy of my cousin's son's driver's license. Tyler, 19. Community college. Why would Grant have this? Carla went pale. He helped Tyler apply for a student discount laptop. The refrigerator rattled on. Headlights from a passing car slid across the blinds and over the table full of evidence. Then I saw the dry cleaning bag Grant had left when he stormed out. I opened it. No suit. Just an empty hanger, a tuxedo receipt, and a travel folder for a resort in Arizona. 2 names on the itinerary. Grant and Beth. Departure Monday morning. 1 wake, our rental attached. Beth whispered. What is it? I turned the folder toward her. Her face changed slowly, like the truth had to travel a long distance before it reached her. He said it was a surprise. She said, a long honeymoon. I tapped the rental line. That isn't a honeymoon. That's leaving. Carla gripped the table until her knuckles whitened. Beth pressed both palms onto a credit union statement as if she could hold her life down. He kept saying you do ruin everything. He said you hated seeing me happy. That if I let you ask questions, you'd make me feel stupid. I remembered Grant answering for her, standing too close, smiling before she finished a sentence. I remembered Beith's laugh arriving late whenever he was nearby. I had called it wedding stress. I had missed fear wearing a white dress. I'm sorry, I said. Beth blinked at me. For not seeing it sooner. Her chin trembled. I helped him. No. I said. You trusted him. That doesn't fix it. No, but it tells us where to start. Carla began to cry. One hand over her mouth, the other on Beith's shoulder like she was afraid her daughter might disappear. I stacked the papers into piles, because if my hands stopped moving, I might break something. Then I put my phone on the table between us. Beth stared at it. What happens now? Now, I said, we stop him from using anybody else's name. By 8 the next morning, my kitchen looked like a bad tax season. Statements, screenshots, copies of IDs, sticky notes with dates. Beth sat beside me in the same sweatshirt, her hair tied back with a rubber band from my junk drawer. Carla stood at the sink, rinsing 1 mug so long I finally reached around her and turned off the water. We need help, I said. Beth flinched. Not as kind. I added. Real help. My old client Marlene was a family attorney who had once hired me to fix the sound system in her community theater. She answered on the second ring. Her voice sharpened when I said credit lines and signatures she doesn't remember. Bring everything, she said. Do not warn him. Do not answer private calls. Freeze her credit now. At her office, the coffee tasted like burnt pennies, and the printer jammed twice before chewing the corner of Beath's bank statement. Marlene slapped the machine with her palm. Not today. Beth almost smiled. Almost. Marlene spread the papers across the conference table. Calm as a surgeon. Yellow legal pad. Black pen. No speeches. This account is in Beath's name, she said. This one appears to use Carla as a guarantor. Carla's hand tightened around her plastic folder. Mine? Marlene nodded. And here there's a secondary contact. Tyler. My stomach dropped. HES 19. I said, he stocks groceries at night. Beth covered her mouth. Oh God. No, Marlene said. Not oh God. Now we make calls. So we did. Credit bureaus. Banks. The credit union. A fraud department with hold music so cheerful it felt cruel. Every successful freeze ended with a tiny chime from someone's phone. After the fourth one, Carla cried silently into a napkin, and I pretended not to notice because pride was all she had left. I called my cousin from the hallway. Tyler needs to check his credit today. I said, don't debate me. Just do it. Grant called Beth 17 times. Then me. Then Carla. We watched the screens light up and go dark. At noon, a detective took the first report in a small room that smelled like floor cleaner and old paper. Beath's hand shook over the statement, but she signed her own name. Outside, she stopped beside my truck. I thought if I admitted it, everybody would know I was stupid. I looked at my sister in the hard sunlight, frightened but still standing. No, I said. Now everybody knows you're telling the truth. Grant didn't disappear. Men like him rarely do at first. He left voicemails that swung from pleading to threats, then back to that bruised, gentle voice he used when he wanted sympathy. By Friday, a detective had his phone, his laptop, and a stack of statements thick enough to slow him down. The wedding ended with one email Beth made me sit beside her to send. Her finger hovered over the mouse. This feels like jumping. It's not, I said. It's landing. I never gave her $48,000. I paid the lawyer directly, then the credit counselor, then 3 months on a small apartment above a closed barber shop, where the radiator hissed at night and the kitchen window faced a brick wall. It wasn't pretty. It was safe. A few relatives apologized. A few vanished behind silence. I stopped chasing either one. One Saturday, Beth painted an old dining table pale blue while Carla warmed canned soup on the stove. I fixed her cheap Bluetooth speaker with the tiny screwdriver I usually used on theater microphones. When the music finally came through, thin but steady, Beth laughed like the sound had surprised her. We ate soup and toast at that blue table. Her phone lay face down beside the salt shaker, quiet for once. No buzzing. No demands. No emergency disguised as love. Watching my sister breathe easier across the steam, I understood what I should have known sooner. Kindness isn't always the fastest transfer. Sometimes it is standing still while people call you cruel, long enough for the truth to catch up.